4,000 years ago, Indo-Aryans migrated from Central Asia into modern-day India, bringing with them their religious traditions. These traditions will grow and develop over the next several thousand years into what we now call Hinduism, which includes 15% of the global population.
In the 3rd century BCE, the Hindu holy books, which had previously been transmitted orally, were written down. The Vedic texts, which include the Rig Veda, the Sama Veda, and the Yajur Veda. The most important of these is the Rig Veda, which contains poetic hymns, mantras, melodies, and chants like these.
Hindus don't consider Hinduism to be a religion in the traditional sense. There is a word Hindus use, dharma, which refers to both the rules of behavior prescribed by Hinduism and also encapsulates the idea of a philosophy or a thought pattern. Hindus consider their practices to be more than just a belief system, but a higher way of thinking and living that leads to God.
Speaking of God, most people believe that Hinduism is a polytheistic religion. Although there are millions of deities in Hinduism, Hindus do believe that there is one supreme being, Brahman. Brahman is the source of everything and the ultimate end of every Hindu's life.
Brahman is viewed as the true reality of things. It is shapeless, genderless, bodiless. It cannot be described. It can only be experienced.
Now stick with us because this is where it gets a little complicated. A key concept in Hinduism is the Atman, or the soul. Hindus believe that the Atman is a part of Brahman. In other words, that everyone's soul is by nature a part of God, but that it is separated from him by life in this physical existence, which Hindus believe is experienced over and over through a cycle of death and reincarnation.
This cycle is called samsara. The only way to release the Atman, or soul, from samsara, or the cycles of death and reincarnation, and reach union with Brahman, or God, is by climbing up the cycle of reincarnation.
There are two kinds of reincarnation in Hinduism. The first is the reincarnation of the self, which takes place at the end of a life. And the second is the reincarnation of the universe, which takes place every 4 billion years or so. Individual reincarnation into a better or worse life is based on one's karma, in this case, meaning how one lives, as opposed to dharma, which is how one is supposed to live. To sum it up, the way to accumulate good karma and reach the end of this physical life is to show utter devotion to Brahman.
There is a story told in Hindu tradition about a student and his master walking near a river. The student asked his master, "How can I see God?" The master led the student into the river, and once they were deep enough, the master shoved his student's head under the water. The student fought, and just when he thought he was going to die, the master released him and said, "When you can long for Brahman with the same strength as you had in your desire for your next breath, then you will be able to see him."
But Brahman is not the only deity worshipped in Hinduism. There are over 330 million deities that are considered to be sent from Brahman, and who are worshipped by performing puja or bhakti, daily acts of devotion like offerings, yoga, the singing of hymns, and meditation. This brings up a question we want you to discuss. What is devotion? What would you say that you are devoted to?
Out of the 330 million deities in Hinduism, there are 3 that are more important than any of the others: Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva.
First, there's Brahma, the creator. He created everything in the universe, but he is not the universe itself, because that's Brahman. They aren't the same thing. That last letter changes a lot, apparently. He has 4 heads. The heads face each of the 4 directions to represent the 4 Vedas, which he created, and the 4 yugas. He also holds a book, which represents knowledge. Vishnu, the preserver, is the second member of the Hindu trinity. He preserves the world created by Brahma until it is eventually destroyed by Shiva. He holds a discus which he uses to cut down anyone that tries to mess with his dharma, along with a conch which symbolizes victory and the 5 elements. Next is Shiva the Destroyer, the third member of the Hindu Trinity. It's his job to destroy the universe in order to prepare for its renewal at the end of each cycle of time. The most identifiable of his features is his third eye.
Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are considered the 3 main forces of the universe. They are worshipped above all the other deities and seen as kind of a holy trinity. But all 3 also present themselves in many other forms, which are worshipped as well.
Other gods and goddesses are also worshipped as household or personal deities, with Hindus relying on them for health, happiness, and success.
Hey gods, it's Devi Vishwakumar, your favorite Hindu girl in the San Fernando Valley. What's a poppin'? It's the first day of school, and I thought we should have a check-in. I think we can all agree that last year sucked for a number of reasons. So I thought of a few ways you guys can make it up to me. 1, I'd like to be invited to a party with alcohol and hard drugs. I'm not gonna do them, I just like the opportunity to say, no cocaine for me, thanks. I'm good. 2, I'd love for my arm hair to thin out. I know it's an Indian thing, but my forearms look like the friggin' floor of a barber's shop. And lastly, most importantly, I'd really like a boyfriend. But not some nerd from one of my AP classes. Like a guy from a sports team. He can be dumb. I don't care.
Besides personal worship, there are lots of celebrations and rituals within Hinduism. Marriage, birth, and death are all marked by Vedic chants, like we heard earlier, as well as fire ceremonies called yanja.
And Vedic chanting is especially important. Hindus believe that when Vedic texts are chanted, they become more than just words. They become magical and can grant long life and happiness to the hearer in marriage and birth, or safe passage into the next life and death. There are also several pilgrimages Hindus can go on that result in big boosts in karma.
On top of these smaller rituals, there are hundreds of Hindu celebrations. There's Diwali, the Festival of Lights, which commemorates the victory of Rama over the demon Ravana, a symbolic victory of light over darkness.
Diwali is certainly one of the biggest, brightest, and most important festivals of India. While Diwali is popularly known as the Festival of Lights, the most significant spiritual meaning behind it is the awareness of the inner light, or the Atman. The celebration of Diwali as the victory of good over evil refers to the light of higher knowledge dispelling all ignorance. While the story behind Diwali and the manner of celebration of the festival differ greatly depending on the region, the essence of the festival remains the same: the celebration of life, its enjoyment, and goodness.
There's also Holi, the festival of color, which is a celebration of the start of spring and is focused around Krishna, the god of love.
The Festival of Colors is in full swing. Known as Holi, the Hindu festival celebrates spring with a day of unlimited joy.
In fact, there are hundreds of festivals to celebrate Krishna, as well as the other deities. Hindus are a deeply traditional people, and with 330 million gods, there's a lot to celebrate. So that's an overview of Hinduism. There's obviously a lot more to the religion, but these are the main ideas. So let's take a closer look at the overarching patterns and beliefs in Hinduism. First, there is the concept of devotion. Hindus care a lot about being devoted to Brahman because it's the only way they can be released from the suffering of life.
They also put a lot of emphasis on hospitality and friendship because according to dharma, that's the right thing to do. Hindu culture is incredibly open and welcoming. Since they put so much emphasis on doing good, this can make them some of the kindest people you'll ever meet. With this in mind, turn to the people around you and discuss these questions. How is Hinduism similar to what you believe? How is it different?
There are some parts of Hinduism that can make people uncomfortable. Some of these stem from misunderstandings, like the seeming strangeness of the rituals, the purpose behind the caste system, and the perception that the religion is polytheistic. But there are also parts of Hinduism that do hurt people, just as parts of many religions have been used to hurt people.
For example, the caste system inherently places value on some people above others, and worship can be incredibly strict and regimented. That doesn't mean all Hindus are bothered by it, but it can seem harmful and strange to outsiders, especially in the West, where we aren't used to having so much tradition and mandated order in our daily lives.
Hinduism may seem totally different from Christianity in every way, but the two religions actually have a lot of similarities. They both worship one God as supreme, they both refer to a trinity, and they both put a lot of emphasis on the behavior of the believer.
For Hindus, though, devotion comes before union with God. Closeness with God is earned through behavior, and Hindus believe they have to go through many lives before they are good enough to be accepted by God. For Christians, devotion is a response to God's love, a reaction to the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross. For the Christian, obedience is not the way to God's heart, but the natural behavior that results from closeness with Him.
In John 15:4, Jesus says, "Abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me." Christians believe that every good thing we do is the result of a changed heart. Hindus believe that the pressure is all on the individual to make sure their good actions outweigh their sins. If they do enough good, then they get to move up in the reincarnation cycle and get closer to God. Christians are free in Christ to do the right thing because God enables us to. Hindus have to do the right thing all on their own. That brings us to our final question. Do you believe God asks certain behaviors of us? Why?
A lot of Christians lean so heavily on believing the right things about God that we forget there's an action part to Christianity. This is what the entire book of James is about. James 2:14 through 16 says this, "What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but doesn't have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, be warmed and filled,' without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead." We forget sometimes that doing the right thing is as much a part of Christianity as it is a part of Hinduism.
A man named Rahil Patel was training to be a Hindu priest. Hindu priests are in the highest caste and are revered as people who can interpret the literal words of God. Rahil felt that being in this vocation would give him the closest thing to communion with God that a Hindu can have in this life. But instead, God felt far away. He abandoned religion altogether, and it wasn't until he had a seemingly simple experience that he began to see life in a different way.
I was done with my search for God, and I parked the whole idea of religion because I had no answers. And feeling that I've wasted my life with Hinduism, I forgot about my secret encounters with Christ. I was done. So I flew back to London. 3 weeks later, I was walking to South Kensington Station. I had a prompting and my head turned and I saw this church down this very quiet road. And as I approached the church, I saw these beautiful red doors. It was a Sunday morning and these two people were welcoming people to come in. And as soon as I walked through the doors, the presence of God just fell on me. I felt this incredible peace, and this very silent whisper again in my left ear said, "You're home."
What we can learn from Rahil's experience is that the God of Christianity is as close as a whisper. We don't have to, in fact, we can't, earn his love with good behavior. His love is offered to us freely. All we have to do is accept it.
In the next couple of episodes, we'll explore more of the world's religions. For now, though, we want you to remember that God's love can reach even the most distant people. We hope that you'll remember to love your neighbor and do your best to try and understand them, while always remembering the words of Ephesians 2:4-5. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved.